Welcome everybody. Welcome to this online info session on competencies needed for prospering from digital transformation, from digitalization. Some short background. EIT Digital is working with partners in an ecosystem where we also provide professional courses to our partners, together with our partners, and for the open market. We try to keep the courses up to date, so we always have the latest knowledge needed for the digital transformation and digitalization of organizations. Today is very much sustainable digital innovation, of course, but also blockchain, data science in general, and cybersecurity, of course. Our portfolio, EIT Digital's portfolio of professional courses, is designed to provide the skills needed in order to provide the digital transformation that we expect to take care of and help you with. We invite, of course, executives and other decision makers in these small courses, together with professionals, short, compact courses, 2 to 4 days, in an online mood, blended online mode with also in-person classes, where you can be led towards real skills with hands-on learning, meeting and networking with your fellows from other organizations with similar challenges. So there's an opportunity for networking, of course, but focus on attaining these skills and these competencies. What are them? What are they? What do you need? Next slide, please. In this work we do in order to get the right skills to our partners, as I mentioned, we work with partners, and for this professional school courses, we work with KTH Executive School, and Staffan Marvin here later will present what we offer there and how we can also blend these or adapt these to the needs of organizations which will come with more than a single participant if you have organizational challenges that you want to meet together with us. But to understand what is needed, we have Professor Jan Gulliksen here to help us to see what challenges there are and what is needed to meet these challenges. Professor Jan Gulliksen is the digital champion of Sweden, serving the European Commission, has also worked for the Swedish government as the chairman of Swedish Committee for Digitalisation. So we're very happy and very honored to have you here with us to help us to understand what is needed. With that, I welcome you, Professor, and give you the virtual floor. Welcome.
Thank you very much, and thank you for that very nice introduction, Göran. As Göran said, my name is Jan Gulliksen. Basically, my main role is that I'm a professor in human-computer interaction at KTH, Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm, Sweden. And I also currently serve as the Vice President for Digitalization of our university. To joke a bit about it, I've said that I have been recognized as a critic for the university's inability to digitalize themselves. And what's the best way to disarm a critic? Well, you make him responsible for it. So I have the responsibility for digitalizing KTH and working mainly on a strategic level to let that happen. And so I wanted to share with you a few of the ideas, both that relates to the digitalization of what we're doing, and also to some work I've been doing in my role as Vice President for Digitalization when it comes to defining advanced digital skills and how that can serve the community, which is based on some fairly recently published research that was actually published as late as last week on this. So it's fairly new and recent research that I wanted to share with you. But first of all, let me base this in some conceptual definitions that I think is important to ground what we're doing on. 10 years ago, I was given the task by the current Minister of Digitalization, or actually IT, it was called at the time, IT and Energy, Mrs. Anna-Karin Hatt, who gave me the role of being the chairperson in charge of the Committee for Digitalization. This is the way that politics works in Sweden. You outsource the sort of thinking process behind the politics to independent thinkers that gets to develop how things should develop and the basis for the politics. And then the politicians take it back and think about it. One of the first tasks we got was actually thinking about what does this concept mean? What is digitalization? And I think it's important to make this distinction early on, because sometimes in the English language you hear people talking about digitization and sometimes about digitalization. And to me, there's a very subtle difference between these, because digitization is sort of the old-fashioned way of digitalizing your business, something we called information digitalization when we were trying to think about what this was. Basically, it meant turning your business into a digital version of it without actually changing the way that you're doing things. Just as an example, if you make your forms available online so that users can download your forms, fill them in by hand, scan them and email them back to you, then you haven't really changed the processes around things. You've only digitized the way of doing it. While digitalizing things is actually thinking about how can we do things in completely new ways based on the opportunities that technology offer, or can you actually even do completely new things based on this? So this was the reason that we wanted to focus on digitalization. How can we actually change the way we're working? What are our new business model, our new businesses, our new products that we're working on delivering in that sense? And this was published in something that in Sweden is called SOU. It's the government's official inquiries, and it's an abbreviation of their reports that the politicians produce for the politics to make the good decisions. And these are available in Swedish to all the community in that sense. I usually take an example to explain what we talk about when we talk about digitalization, and I will just shortly touch upon it, because if we're thinking about digitalization as the complete transformation on your business based on what technology can offer, for example, digitalization of the music industry, we could claim that happened 150 years ago, when it was actually possible to start recording a concert, because before this technological innovation, that was the only way that you could go to a concert physically and listen to it, and you would only hear a concert once. But when Edison invented the gramophone player, you could actually start recording your music and store it on these types of wax rolls that had a very high quality, but it didn't really play off as an ecosystem. He didn't earn that much money on that type of product because he simply didn't know what the users actually wanted, because these wax rolls were really difficult to store. They were quite fragile in their technology. So it wasn't until this vinyl records came that it became a big commercial success, and people started buying it and playing music in this sense. And it continued as well. When I was a kid, we started recording music on these types of cassettes, and politics tried to intervene in what happened there and say that, oh, this means that users can actually copy music. How would the producers of the music, how would the artists make a living if it was free for everybody to copy music back and forth? So actually the politicians wanted to forbid this type of technology. Luckily, that didn't happen, but they actually put an extra tax on it to provide some sort of payback to the artists in that sense. When I was old enough to get kids of my own, we got another mean to do that, which was the CD, which then we looked upon as the future of the way of storing music. And I actually have relatives who threw away all of their vinyl music to buy everything the same on CD. And when I asked them why they did that, they said, well, it's simply because I'm so proud of my music collection, so I want my children to inherit it in the future. So therefore, it needs to be on a sustainable media, and little did they know that the CD would only be a short parenthesis in the history of digitally storing music in that sense. Because soon you started to get these types of technologies. This was one of my very first storage facilities to store music when I went out running, that had no movable parts in it, so I could actually run at the same time. It had a half-an-hour battery lifetime, and the memory could contain 4 songs, and I was so happy to get this opportunity to do this while being out and running. And I guess the rest of it, it became smaller and smaller and could store more and more music. And eventually it actually also moved into the telephone. Then we had an interesting player, the Pirate Bay, that then started providing file sharing in this sense, which they also were prosecuted for. But maybe that was actually the starting point for creating what we now know as the innovation in music industry, online streaming, which has completely changed the business model from us owning music to us renting music instead. So if we view digitalization as all of these different steps, we learn quite a lot of interesting things. We learn that it is actually more about the business development than it is about the technology. We develop the way that we use these things, and we can base it on a bottom-up approach from what the users actually need and start from their needs to be able to develop this in a good way. And that it requires also a strategic leading this type of transformation to make it happen. Maybe today we recognize it by examples such as Uber or Airbnb, which are companies that have completely changed the view of what is a taxi service and what is a hotel chain. I mean, Airbnb is a hotel chain that doesn't own any hotel rooms by itself. It's a service that they provide in that sense. And also interesting to see that one of the first advertisements of Google's autonomous car, they also advertised it with a blind user that was about to step into the car to drive it further, which is actually showing them how a product reaches a completely bigger and new market simply because we have the opportunities of doing so. This is really what I would claim that digitalization actually would mean, the digital transformation of the business and how we relate to that. And of course, then, to be able to do that, it requires digital skills. And I've added here a definition that comes from the European Commission and that has been further adapted in the works that we did in the Committee for Digitalisation, where we define digital competence as the extent to which one is familiar with digital tools and services, and to what extent we're able to monitor digital development and its impact on one's life. It includes knowledge of seeking information, communicating, interacting, and producing digitally, skills in using tools and services, understanding the transformation that digitalization entails in the society with its opportunities and risks, and a motivation, which differs it from the European Commission definition, the motivation to participate and be part of the development that is actually happening. However, this is a definition of digital competence that more is about how everybody, what basic knowledge and skills that everybody needs to have to be a part of the digital society. But that's not really maybe what makes a company develop and prosper. Rather, it's more about these advanced digital skills. And that it was that I referred to previously with the new report that I was talking about that we published as an open access paper on defining digital excellence, the requisite skills and policy implications for digital transformation. That was published last week in IEEE Access, online first version of this. And this is something that we've done based on some commissioned research that the Swedish Agency for Economic and Regional Growth, together with the Swedish Higher Education Authority, together has developed. They were given the task by the Minister of Digitalisation in Sweden to think about how can we actually make our society be better at developing the skills needed for the digital transformation, because they saw the field of advanced digital skills as something where you actually had a negative unemployment rate, meaning that there's more jobs out there than there are actually people that could shoulder these jobs. So we got that task to try to define what we mean by digital excellence in that sense. And the investigation is just about to hand over its final report just after the summer to the government with their policy suggestions on what they want to do. Interestingly enough, when then we went through and tried to define what we mean by digital excellence, we would see that this is really a complex concept. It mainly, if you think about what is digital excellence, you would think of the knowledge needed. And what type of knowledge do you need? Well, basically today you see that you needed some general knowledge with a breadth of different things, from philosophy, ethics, gender, to all aspects of humanities as well. You need some sort of digital breadth where you have knowledge on various types of ICT processes and concepts on this, something that we could talk about as ICT literacy. But if somebody is to have digital excellence, you expect them also to have a unique specialization in an area with some sort of cutting edge domain. Maybe you're a quantum computing expert, an AI expert, or working with cybersecurity, etc. in that. But we also see now digital excellence occurring in completely other fields as well. Maybe you're a nurse that no longer are able to work with nursing. Maybe you've broken your back or something like that, so you cannot continue with your profession. So you get some sort of further education to be able to work with digitalization in the area where you had your previous profession. So we see a lot of domain-specific digital excellence specialists in many different aspects that are so crucial and important for the development of the domain. But when we started interviewing people about this, it wasn't only the knowledge that was seen as important part of the digital excellence and was seen as a prerequisite to be able to claim that you had digital excellence. Actually, we needed to also speak about the capacity and capability to apply and develop digital products, to see to what extent you had actually done something and were able to program or develop things or control your software engineering processes and so forth on this. There was an expectation on also having a breadth of completely different things that helps you present and and work with these skills in a different fashion, like having critical thinking, having creativity, being able to collaborate in a good way, being able to present and communicate around the things that you're doing, being proficient in using information and media and technology in good ways, but also be adaptable and flexible, having leadership and so forth on this. Also, the disposition was important, that being digitally excellent required you to have certain attitudes and values where you actually commit to delivering the best possible quality for the end user in this sense, including, for example, considering the gender equity aspects, considering the professional ethics, or considering the impact that the work that you do has on the society in that sense. Also, we realized that this is a quickly evolving and developing field where the knowledge change very quickly, and you need to be able to adapt to these new technologies that are emerging, the new ways of working. So you need to have a mobility in your knowledge to be able to track and trace the changes that are happening and showing an interest in the development of the society. Finally, a certain aspect also reflective insights, where you actually learn from what you experience and take in that information and continue to develop all the time on that. And as you see here, it is a lot that we require of somebody that we would call digitally excellent. And this is the output that the industry and public sector gave us when we interviewed them about their expectations. So no wonder our initial title of the report we wrote in Swedish to the Commission about this was the new Renaissance person, because we're actually requiring or wanting to have all of these different skills at the same time. Interestingly enough, when we're sort of looking into how we rank different countries' ability to do this was something we did both as a digital champion and as a chairman of the Digital Commission. I looked into those things. We could see that Sweden, just as an example, is a country that is often very highly ranked when it comes to digitalization in various aspects. Here we can see that Sweden has a high level of digitalization. The network readiness index is high. In this report from a few years back, we had the level number 3. Actually, more or less the same rating as a number of other things. But I went into the data and tried to figure out how come we're not being number 1 on this. And I could then easily discover that for example, the quality of our education system is something that we in Sweden need to develop thoroughly. So as you may see from the right-hand side of this picture, you see that Sweden appears in place 43 when it comes to the quality of math and science education. So clearly, skills and education is an important aspect to develop to be able to meet these goals in a good way. I usually also refer to John Seeley Brown and colleagues that are talking about how things are changing much more quicker these days than they did beforehand. In the past, you may go to your university education between the ages of 19 and 25, perhaps. You would acquire an education that you would then work with the skills that you had acquired for the rest of your working life until you retired. This will most likely not be the case in the future. Things will develop so fast that you need to change your skills more and more. And one of the things that these authors claimed was that the half-life of learned skills has sort of decreased to the level that is now is 5 years, that much of what you learned 10 years ago is obsolete, and half what you learned 5 years ago is also irrelevant. Actually, now, today, this is 10 years ago that they published this. They're claiming that maybe this half-life is down to 3 years. So you can start wondering, why do we educate people for a big education and giving them into school for 5 or more years to get your university degree? And then one of the things you need to start doing immediately is then to continue to develop your skills in this. Well, maybe we need to be able to get much more of lifelong learning, where you can go in and refuel knowledge in various ways. And at the end here, I just wanted to provide you with a few different examples of what could happen when you do things like that. I kind of like the following example, which is something unique that we did at KTH Royal Institute of Technology, where we got some funding from ESF and from the Wallenberg Foundation to develop what we called the Software Development Academy, which was an initiative to educate the newly arrived immigrants that had a higher skill level, but that were not really able to get a good and decent job within their own skills. So we actually provided them with a quick 12 to 14 week education in the latest updates in programming. So we could actually graduate them almost to the level of bachelors within these short education time. Not caring too much about knowing the Swedish language, because in the IT sector, this isn't really a necessity. And it turned out that this was a hugely successful experiment. It turned out that the companies were really interested in hiring these people immediately after they finished their job. So about 80% of all of them were hired within 3 months after they had finished this type of education. But before the education, they could have been called to a number of different interviews, but without getting the opportunity to do so. So that was a very successful case in that sense of it. We also talk a lot about the changes in conditions for the labor market. This is from a heavily cited research work by Carl Benedict Frey, where he showed that about every second job will disappear within the next 20 years due to digitalization. And you can see which aspects, the ones being to the right-hand side of the diagram at the bottom, showing that professions relating to service, sales related, office, administrative support, etc., are hugely affected by digitalization and jobs that may risk disappearing, while others relating to management, computer engineering, education, and healthcare is less affected by this. And this is a pretty natural thing, that jobs disappear and new jobs occur. Because this study does unfortunately not speak about the new jobs that are developing in this sense. But here it clearly shows the need for every organization to continue with developing the skills of their own staff to meet the requirements for the future on this. Stefan Fölster translated this study into Swedish as well a few years later on, where we actually found that it was even more people in Sweden that risked losing their jobs due to digitalization, simply because we already had a quite high level of skills in that sense. And one of the interesting things that happens when you have this transformation is that you get like an hourglass economy, where you have sort of the middle skills people. Those are the ones who are risking to lose their job in this sense. So where do they go to? Well, from this study, you could see that a lot of the people actually went to lower skilled level rather than higher skilled level, as the example of Portugal in this image, where 10 out of 10 actually went to lower skilled jobs instead. While Ireland, as a good example among these that were picked out, were very good in terms of, with governmental means, were working towards supporting and promoting the people that went out of a job to go to more high skilled jobs in a sense. So we really need to focus on this transformation of skills that are needed. And I think we really need to work with companies to be more prone to supporting their staff to get new employments. But we that are representing university also need to redesign our education, our curriculums, and our administrative processes around admitting students to actually capture much more of what is happening in that sense. One of the studies that were done in Sweden on this was done by the Swedish IT and Telecom industries, an organization that now has changed name to Tech Sweden instead. They did a study a few years ago where they had said that by 2022, this year, we would be missing 70,000 people in Sweden with IT skills, and then I mean advanced IT skills. There is a negative unemployment in this area, clearly. So they wanted to get a debate going and wanted to focus more on how we in a better way could develop the skills needed to match the needs from the industry. They have repeated these studies afterwards, and that they're still claiming the numbers are about the same, even if the studies that have been done now more recently have not been as thorough as this one on this sense. So clearly we should focus on how to deliver these people. And this is Sweden. If we would scale this proportionally to Europe, for example, we would have a need of 3.5 million people with advanced digital skills in Europe to be able to match the needs in the industry, which is a huge number of people and requiring a lot of new ways of educating and teaching what we're doing in this. And then you think about what are they doing at the universities in terms of that. And I would want to put your emphasis on this picture that I borrowed from José Manuel Barroso some years back, where they're showing the blue line in the rightmost diagram that shows the vacancies in the digital sector that is approaching 1 million already in 2015. And it's exponentially growing, so the needs are really big in this sense. But the really worrying thing in this picture is the red line. How are we graduating? Well, no, nothing is happening there, and we do really need to focus on ways of being able to graduate more people within the ICT sector to be able to match where the jobs are needed for the future. It's not only making universities admit more people, but we actually need to have more students applying for this, because if we would only increase the number of students of this, the students we would admit wouldn't have the skills required to actually be able to make the education here. So it's hugely important to have that happening. And finally, I wanted to give an example from my wife's job. My wife is working with talent management and acquisition at a Finnish-Norwegian IT company called Tietoevry. And they were realizing that they needed to hire a lot of IT people with advanced IT skills, hiring them quicker than they were able to actually manage with traditional processes. So what she and her colleagues were doing was that they were actually working with a gamification of the recruitment process. So they translated their needs into a game in which potential candidates can go in, solve problems, and level in this system to be able to show that they have the skills needed for the positions that they had available. Interestingly enough, what they discovered when they did this was that there was actually a way also to get a better gender equity in what they were doing. So it was almost 50-50 in the male-female ratio in the candidates that went through this system. What they also discovered was that many of the people that came out good in this system, they didn't have a traditional university degree. They had learned to do the job by using completely different ways of managing this. And I think that that's hugely important, because what do we do at the university? We educate people for them to get a degree, rather than for them to get a specific type of knowledge. So for us at universities, these types of examples should sort of teach us to think differently about what we're educating and how we're educating this. So I believe in a future where everybody that is working need to spend about 10 to 20% of their working time for further education to be able to manage in a good way. I believe in a future where the formal exam is less important than what you actually know. Maybe rather than collecting a set of completed courses, you can collect a portfolio of achievements that can show what you're actually capable of doing in terms of developing program code or writing a usability evaluation report or whatever it is you're doing. I think that the higher education needs to be much more efficient, flexible, and agile than it is today, which requires then political decisions to be made on that. I believe in a future where the digitalization of the education has the potential of making learning more broadly accessible throughout the entire society, because clearly the things that we are teaching at university can be of interest to both younger and older students in that sense, both those working and those that are between jobs in that sense. I think the system for higher education needs to be altered. I think we need to work much more with automated education, examination, and assessments. For example, using AI to manage that and where also the student can develop their skills of the teachers in the way that they're working to modernize the education. That was what I wanted to share with you, and thank you very much for that. And by that, I would want to give the floor to Staffan to make his presentation also before we take questions. I think. Let's see if I can see where I can move the presentation mode to you, Staffan. I think I've stopped my sharing now, haven't I?
No, but I can take it over.
You can take it over. Good. There it goes.
So yes, and that means thank you very much, Jan, and you will be able to read the questions that came during your talk and to answer them after I presented the 3 courses that we are promoting or that we are holding together with the EIT Digital. We have 3 short courses. As Göran said in the beginning, EIT Digital have a setup of different courses in different topics, and where we at KTH Executive School produce and provide 3 different short courses. And they are very much in line with Jan Gulliksen's explanation of social digitalization, because very much is how you in fact can the interaction between the technology and how organizations and individuals can benefit from the technology advantages that the technology provides. And the 3 courses, I'm just going to go briefly through them here with you, and it's Get Ahead in the Ongoing Digital Transformation, it's Business Implications of AI, and it's Sustainable Digital Innovation. If we're taking the first one, which is Go Ahead with the Ongoing Transformation, that's very much focusing on leaving the thing that we have done for so long is to awareness building and understanding that digital transformation is important. It's more to, in fact, understand how powers and structures changes and in different disruptive ways, and how can you build an understanding of what kind of strategies and how you should approach the changes that occur. And it's kind of difficult, because if you remember the list that John showed just a minute ago with all the different competencies, that's our individual competencies, and you need to address these as well as organizational competencies that are multidimensional and are affecting both internal and external processes in a lot of new, unexpected ways, a lot of ways that we have no idea about how to handle. So what we are trying to do in the course is to provide or support you with tools and methods that could capture the business opportunities in the changing global business landscape. And this is something that we in fact have been doing for many years, or 4 years, with different successful transformation, digital transformation courses. And we have been very focused on, in fact, creating a roadmap, what to do now and what to do later, in order to prioritize what to do. Because we should not forget either that when you are going through digital transformation, you're coming from different perspectives and you have different legacies coming into this. And in order for you to be successful, you must understand both where you're coming from, how to organize, and how to develop further. And that this is very much to focus the impact of digitalization for both you as an individual, but also for you as a leader in your organization, and how that becomes a value for your customers and also for your ecosystem. So that is the first course. And also, as mentioned from John just in the beginning, this requires also quite new change of in organization, how to adapt and how to reorganize in order to become successful. So that is the first course that we are providing. The second course is focused on business implications of AI. And AI has been a hype, or been very high focused, and been widely discussed. But it's very much this course is very much seeing how can you start using AI in the business operations, and to make the AI journey, to learn, to make sure that you get the right, from starting with getting the understanding of AI from a technology perspective, so you know what it is and how it can be used, and what can become sustainable advantages from AI, because you need to bring it into the company to see the beneficial side of AI. And then one of the most important aspects is, in fact, what are AI providing, and what kind of strategic decisions do you have to make, and how will you make them? Because it's very much, AI provides you a lot of different information, and it's a great source, but you need to understand what kind of information and data, in fact, that you will benefit from, and what kind of decisions that you will make, and how do you make these questions that you need to ask, and what kind of competences do you need. And the course, in fact, will cover 5 different key areas. What is AI, and why is AI important now? Understanding pipelines, flows, platforms, and what kind of new rules or strategies that AI can provide. And of course, the most important part that is very often forgotten is how value is created and how it will be delivered, because it's an organizational mix or mixture that you need to be adapting in order to get out a lot of the benefits from AI that normally is forgotten. And then at last to try to build a structure to support you to do the AI journey of yourself. So that is very much what we are trying to do with the business implications of AI course. The third course that we are providing is sustainable digital innovation. And this is, in fact, a very hot topic right now, because there have being produced, and a lot of things are happening because your customers, the society is more and more focused on decreasing carbon footprints, and they also want to have more sustainable products and solutions. And digitalization, in fact, is a key enabler for many. It could be also a hinder, but the most important, it can be a really key enabler to provide more sustainable solutions. And therefore also it could be very important to integrate digitalization together with sustainability in order to create a better competitiveness. And here is very much this course shows and try to see how sustainable digital innovation can meet and even exceed the customer sustainable expectation. And when we have developed this course, we have done it together with the industry and for the industry. And what we saw then was, in fact, we identify 5 different areas that we focus on that are needed within industry in order to tackle sustainable issues. It is, of course, to see how you can to decouple the value from the product in order to have a value focus, in order to see how it can do more with less, and also be able to scale with external partnerships. You also think about innovation in a different way. You need to think about it, not only efficiency that is crucial, but also circularity and also disruptive solutions. And therefore you need to have a focus on how you develop service and system offerings to other extent, and how digitalization can support that. And it is a system perspective in this course, because you need to see how you can develop to support a change in systems that are less or more, that is more sustainable, and that also can support the speed and trust and acceptance in changes. But of course, there is financial constraints, and you also must understand how transformation not only within your company, but also within an ecosystem and within institutional frameworks are made. So that is very much the identified areas that are put into question, and where we try to focus mainly on the 2 questions. How can digital technologies help us manage and innovate our role in our business ecosystems that support sustainable development of business and society? And we think that is a crucial and very competitive position to take. And what can we learn from the existing and emerging cases of digitally enabled sustainable solutions? Because there has happened a lot, and there is happening a lot within digitalization and sustainable digital innovation. And what you will in fact get from this course is also to support to develop a roadmap to sustainable digital business model transformation, and also get a toolbox for how to pursue with digital business models and smart services. So this is 3 courses that we provide through EIT Digital that we have developed in different modes, and are, as we believe, are very valuable to we have seen very valuable for different to take part in, so to speak. So that is I'll leave to you now, and I switch to John, and then I come back and answer the questions that are raised to me. Or Göran, do you want to hop in first?
Thank you, Staffan. Very good. I think it's great to hear this, and I think I could monitor the Q&As here. So thank you also, Jan. Very inspirational, very interesting, and nice to see you have also these new publications. I saw in the chat that you put the link to the IEEE paper that I was requested in the questions. That was excellent. Thank you. Given the order of questions, I actually would like first to put a question myself to Staffan, because you mentioned that you mentioned that you just developed these things together with the industry, these courses and other courses that we've seen before. I guess they had impact. Are you willing to comment on the impact from the industry?
Yes, we had a couple of, and we worked very closely in workshops with the industry in order to address the topics, and and very much it has had impact very much, because we're seeing there are new solutions that are made, and there is a ongoing search process within industry to find new sustainable solutions. But we should not forget that all industry, all players come from a legacy. They come from a structure that they already exist. So we need to find ways and support ways that are supporting their legacy and their development by approaching with new tools and solutions. So that is very much what we are, because companies are coming from different angles, and we need to support them in ways that are appropriate for their needs.
Excellent. I think also we talked about that you have an opening for adapting these kinds of courses to specific needs. If there is an organization that come up with a team that needs training together, then you can adapt it to their needs. So it will be much more focused.
Yes, and we have done it for industry players. We have done it for ICT players, and we've done it for different companies already.
There was one question about certification from sustainable digitalization. Does it give you a certificate to be displayed?
Yes.
Good. Then I think we go from the top again. There was a question from Ranye, I think his name is. He got the link to the EEE paper. Should data and data management and governance be part of ICT literacy? I think that came up with the slide where you talked about all the perspectives or the breadth and depth and everything. And
Yes.
IT literacy came in as one. ICT literacy.
Yes, indeed. I did provide an answer in the written form as well to that. But to me, dealing with data and having the basic skills on knowing how to deal with data, how to manage it, how to store it, how to be able to clean it and process and work with that will be an essential skill for most ICT jobs in the future, I imagine. So for me, that's clearly a part of the ICT literacy to have that type of skills. Yes.
Thank you. Maybe that written answer went only to him, because I cannot see it. It's not in the chat.
I tried to write on all of them, but I didn't really see it to the answers I wrote. So maybe I clicked send to all in the system at least, but I can't find them myself now.
No. Okay. So, but anyway, there's one more on this. Just a comment. I think ICT skills differ from data science skills, and I could only agree, but both are needed. So all of them are needed. Let's see next. It's also Renier. Can you please share the link? That was that one. Again, and then he will left, I think. Certificate. How it's going to. Then it's a question of how we will share the recording here. I'm not up. I really don't know exactly how it's going to happen, but we'll inform all of you about the courses, and I would expect there would be an email where it's also be details on how to access the recording. Will there be a project work involved that will allow the application of what is learned in the course? I think, Stefan.
No, it will not be a project work as such, since it's a short course, but we will support projects that you have internally with the work, with the course. So it will not be a project work in the course, but we will be support to the different project works that you are pursuing on your home turf?
I happen to have seen the way you work, and I know that you can provide adaptation where you engage
Absolutely.
everyone in defining the challenge, and then you come up with a collective solution given the skills that you have adapted in, for example, online MOOCs and so forth, and then you come together and attack this challenge together. But that's more on the specific adaptation to organizations, I guess.
It is, and I also the course itself is very interactive, so it's much learning and adapting to different aspects of a project plan or a roadmap that you will provide. So you understand the difficulties that the roadmap will provide. So it's very interactive in that sense. But we will, in a short course, we will not have a project work as such in the course, but we will provide support to the project plans that you have on your home turf.
Excellent. What are the requirements for one to join the course?
We are looking at, we have requirements that you are a business professional and that you have, and we can, in fact, we can set it from different levels, but the open courses is that you have a business requirement and that you have a budget responsibility in order to be able to cope with the issues that we are bringing forward.
You don't need to be an engineer from the start then?
You don't need to be an engineer. It of course is an advantage, but it's also good, in fact, to have exactly what John said. Some of the best some competences are not developed engineers from the beginning. They're coming from other sectors. So in fact, there is an advantage to have different competencies joined, because that will also, in order to make this a competitive advantage, is not only technical skills that are required, is in fact the combination of organizational and technical skills.
Thank you. I think those were all the questions. I could ask Jan also one question, because you signal a little frustration on the education in Sweden in particular, and that would be the biggest challenge. We are working on our side from EIT Digital with these professional courses as well as the master courses together with KTH. All are in digital domain and also in innovation and entrepreneurship focus. The initiatives from the government as well as the universities, what I've seen as more analysis. Do you know what's going on or what's happening or what you're working on? You care to comment?
Yes, I mean, first of all, maybe I share frustration that may sound that Sweden is much more difficult than other places in Europe, for example, but I believe that that's not the case, because in the role as digital champion, I frequently hear discussions also from other parts of Europe, at least, where it's similar concerns about lifelong learning and the aspects of getting continued education into the things that I've been doing. From a political point of view, I know that there's ongoing discussions in the government on trying to provide different types of funding for people that want to reskill themselves, providing new means of getting student loans, providing specific commissions to the universities to provide much more lifelong learning related courses and so forth. But I believe that there's a lack of a system view on this, where you sort of put all of these aspects together and how these interplay with each other. So that's one of the criticisms that I have, that often these initiatives that are happening are initiatives from to win sort of political points rather than sort of trying to solve the problem full, because it is really a complex problem involving many different stakeholders and also with a lot of different values underneath in that.
Thank you. I hear that we're not neglecting the problem. We just haven't found the solution or solutions yet.
Exactly.
With that, I think it has been obvious that we all need to train the rest of our life or professional life. And thank you, Staffan, and thank you, Jan, for giving us these insights and these opportunities. It seems like see if there was a more question. Otherwise, I should just no. The listeners say thank you, and I also thank you very much. Thank you all the listeners. I think we were over 50 for some time. Thank you all for this, and good luck with your digital training. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.